Howdy folks, it is Scanner here. Work has been very busy lately, and with the rulebook coming, we're going to have a lot of deep in-world, that kind of serious side of content that I like to do. I like to treat world content with the same level of gravitas, I guess, they would be given in the world. It's just fun, it's what I like to do. I also like to make more relaxed, chill content, which I'm going to be doing a little bit over the coming weeks as we get close to the rulebook. So today's video is basically talking about the 5 really OP French Crusade units according to the lore. Now, I'm not worrying about how they behave on the tabletop here. I only care about the lore, and I'm not saying these are the most 5 or the most OP 5 or anything like that. These are just 5 that I picked that I wanted to talk about because I thought it would be fun. So up first we have the Observers. These guys have a really cool kind of anime monk vibe. They live in monasteries. They do nothing all day but meditate. When they're not meditating, they're just kicking the shit out of stuff. Probably each other, probably random other things, probably communicants, probably whatever they can get their hands on to train with. They're probably the closest thing you'll get to Jubei Kibagami from Ninja Scroll. If you've never seen it, you should probably watch it. That was a guy who always seemed to know what his opponents were going to do. Observers live in a valley. That is second only to mountains when it comes to cool places to live to be OP. Think about it. If you live in a mountain, you're probably a bit of a hard ass. If you live in a valley, you're probably a bit of a hard ass. If you live on the plains, no one gives a shit about you. That's just the way it is. So these guys spend their entire lives meditating in a valley. They have a sick helmet, like just one of the dopest helmet designs you'll see this side of stormtroopers, as far as I'm concerned. It's really cool. It looks awkward. It looks like it'd be hard to move in. It looks like it's detrimental to purpose. Like you're gonna go out and you're getting a fight and you're gonna wear this giant canonical sideways helmet that potentially makes you even easier to hit. Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'll be good. They are armed with a stick. Now, lots of units in Trench Crusade are armed with very fancy stuff, and we'll talk about some of them later on in the video. But the average observer is armed with, it's a spear technically, but it's a fucking stick. It doesn't matter how pointy the end of it is. A stick is a stick. If you're killing people with a stick, that basically makes you the John Wick of the Trench Crusade universe. So this guy is multiple OP characters rolled into one character. But then obviously you have the most OP thing of all, which is that after all their training, after all their meditation, after all their ass kicking, they are capable of hearing the voice of God without being turned into absolute mush. Now, people seem to willfully misinterpret the concept of hearing the voice of God. It's not like God is in their ear going, yo buddy, he's totally going to shoot at you right now. Like they can hear the reverberations of creation, and we can kind of assume that whatever was said at creation is continuing to make the world as it unfolds right this very second. And I think that's what they are tapping into in order to, figure out what's going to occur and maybe give themselves a good chance of dodging whatever is coming their way. But it's definitely hard to find a cooler unit as far as I'm concerned. The Observers are 100% one of my favorite. I just love them. They're like a coiled spring of war crimes waiting to happen, and I'm a huge fan of them. Alrighty, on to the next guy on our list. Up next, we have the Hunters of the Left-Hand Path. These are like the crusty vagabonds of hell. Basically, not only do they live in hell, but they live in the most abandoned, ignored, uncharted, convoluted, and potentially dangerous parts of hell. The parts right out on the edge, where nobody is really sure what is out there, but these guys think there's something out there, and their plan is to fucking kill it, whatever it is. They hunt down weird demon monsters that are made of eyes. Now that should be a giveaway. You would think something that's made of eyes would not give a shit about you and would know you're coming. These guys managed to kill it, turn it into a cloak, and then wear it for their own advantage, which is pretty dope. Not only are they like OP enough to do that, they're also OP enough to wear it, and it does look like a foreskin wrapped around their head, and they don't care. So if we can consider rising above what is almost certain to be peer pressure in hell to look your best, these guys are just like, I don't care if I look like a fucking dick, I'm just going to be powerful as fuck, which is all good. They can also, like, you know, not to downplay this ability or anything, they can essentially teleport through shadows, which is pretty sick. You can just be in one place and then all of a sudden you're in another place, and there doesn't appear to be lore-wise any real limit on what they can do with that, which is superbly terrifying. I'm definitely aging myself here. I'm aging myself with this more than I did even with Ninja Scroll. But if anyone remembers the Visionaries cartoon, there was a dude who could like teleport through shadows and that, and he was pretty fucking cool as well. So maybe it's just teleporting through shadows that I like, as opposed to the Hunters of the Left-Hand Path themselves. Now, there's two more factors to consider with what makes these guys OP. The first one, their arm is an actual bow, and they shoot like lumps of their own viscera and blood and bone and shit at you, which is, I mean, that's just hard. Like, what are you going to do about that? You're going to get a gun? Okay, cool. Go get your gun. I've got my arm. Fuck you. It is very, very difficult to overlook that when it comes to how just lore-wise OP these guys are. But probably what makes them the most OP is the fact that they are prone and known to just not really give a fiddler's fuck about the archdemons. When archdemons put a call out for Hunters of the Left-Hand Path, they're probably not going to show up because they just don't care. They are far beyond removed and above the politics of hell, to the point where you really have to wonder if they'd give a shit if old Lucy himself put out the call for troops. They'd probably just ignore that too, because you're not going to go out to get them where they are, which is in the arse end of nowhere, on the very edges of hell, where existence itself fades away into a acid-fused Rubik's Cube of madness. What are you going to do out there? Fucking cry at them? Okay, now onto the Brazen Bull. We're given the Iron Sultanate and a little bit of representation in this list because the Brazen Bulls are just quite crazy. They are legitimate and actual, factual, literal walking artillery. That's done quite a bit in science fiction, but it's done a lot less in fantasy, because in science fiction you can just make giant robot. In fantasy you kind of can't. Most of the big things you see in fantasy will be like Hulk smashing stuff. They'll have a big club or what have you. They'll like stomp on stuff, and don't get me wrong, these guys can stomp on you, no doubt about it, but they've actually been purposefully designed over hundreds of years, over centuries, to carry enormous weapons like they are absolutely nothing. One of the descriptions for the flame cannon, which is one of the weapons that they will one-hand in the game, is that the flame cannon shoots with such intensity and such heat that it is known to basically engulf the crew that's trying to use it. And these guys don't give a shit. They just strap it to their arm and off they go, absolutely mauling everything. They've got a Murad Bombard. Now, imagine I give you the ability to have an artillery witch strapped to your arm and just go wandering around delivering brutal ass beatings to absolutely everything within 10 miles. That's what a Murad Bombard is. You're just going to walk close enough and then you're going to drop fucking disaster on top of it, which is pretty cool. They've got 300-pound monomolecular swords. So if, the key word I think for any sword would be monomolecular. If something's monomolecular, it's giving me the impression that, yeah, it's probably going to cut through me no matter what I am or what I'm wearing or what I'm doing. And then stick 300 pounds behind it. And then include the fact that whatever is swinging it at me is strong enough to move a 300-pound sword at great speed through the air. These guys literally need a shovel called a marriage shovel that is used for public excavation works in order to give themselves cover. Like, that's how big they are. They need a fucking giant shovel to take care of business. They are basically giant lumps of existence. They don't have internal organs. They don't have a weak spot. So if you manage to live long enough, to get close enough, or remain far away enough and alive enough for long enough to get a shot at one of these things, it kind of doesn't fucking matter, because no matter where you're hitting it, you're hitting the same stuff, which is a big lump of about 1,000 pounds of Brazen Bull that doesn't give a fuck that you just shot it. So it's just going to walk over to you and beat you to death with a gun it could have shot you with from 100 meters away, but it was far more fun to walk over there and beat you to death, which is suitably terrifying. Once these guys start moving, they just don't stop. They don't see the need to, they don't see the want to, and quite frankly, you can't make them. Alrighty, on to our next unit, which is the Stigmatic Nuns. We had to get some female representation into this list, and is there a better way to do that than crazy bitches who have literally been touched by Christ? Maybe. It is a meta-Christ, after all, that has touched them, but they are definitely feeling blessed. They run around in their underwear to try and take as many wounds as possible, because suffering gives them power. That's interesting. They legitimately pray to be injured, because lore-wise, if they pick up the right wounds, they will essentially become the incarnation of God's own vengeance. Imagine being able to put that down on your, CV for your next job application. Like, oh, what were you doing from 2017 to 2021? Well, I was actually the incarnation of the vengeance of God. It was fun work, but the benefits were kind of shit. It'd be a very interesting place to find yourself in. Probably the thing I like most about him is, whilst they kind of canonically will be armed with pistols and swords, and they'll kind of go screaming across the battlefield as fast as possible to get as close to you as possible so that they can kill you as possible, they will also very happily beat you to death with the equivalent of a landmine on a fucking stick. And that's just awesome. You can tell I have a thing for sticks. But yeah, they're one of the only units in the game where that actually makes a huge amount of sense to do and use those weapons that inflict damage upon themselves, because the more it hurts, the more it works. That's a thing. And then our last super OP in the lore unit is going to be the old Goethic Warlock. Now, these guys potentially have the greatest disconnect between how effective they are on table versus the lore. In the lore, they're crazy, insane levels of OP. These are kidnapped, pious, extremely pious people. These aren't people who sit there and claim like, oh, I'm a fucking good guy, I'm down with Jesus or whatever. These folks have proven time and time again to live an extremely pious life and potentially be very powerful people in the game of war. They can be difference makers as far as hell are concerned. So of course, being hell, they'll dispatch their little minions to kidnap these folks, bring them down to hell, down to the third level where the death factories are, and they'll basically torture them in the most indescribable ways until these folks just can't take it anymore and can't do it. And they're like, look, guys, it's been nice here. It's been great piety and whatnot, but let's do a deal. Let's art of the deal. Let's do a deal. And they will then be broken and essentially become evil. Why? Because that's what evil does. Evil just tries to break you. That's some anime levels of shit, basically. Now, when it comes to the weapons and stuff, lore-wise, they just have the coolest thing ever, which is like long, spindly fingers. Everybody knows that if you want to be evil and if you want to get work done, And if you really want to hurt people, you have long spindle fingers, big claws and shit. That's just the way it goes. They can create tiny wormholes and teleport using them, themselves and the victim, off to a secluded area where they then torture the victim to death for hours and hours, and potentially days and days and days, which is pretty OP. They can cause necrosis by looking at you. If you don't know what necrosis is, that's the deadening of flesh. There's not much you can do once flesh is dead, except to remove it. You're not bringing that shit back to life. So if these guys look at you wrong, you will literally start dying where they look, which is kind of crazy. And then they wear your face, just so that they can look like you, just so that they can impersonate you and get close to your loved ones who won't know that it's you, or that it's not you, even though they're 10 feet tall and have giant spindle fingers. That's pretty OP. The thing I like the most about these guys is that after they're done shredding you, note that's the key word that they use in the lore, by the way, as well. It's shredding you to death. It's not like ripping you to death or chopping you up or anything like that. It's literally shredding you to death. And once they're done with that, they will make a book out of your skin. And I have decided that that's the likely origins in the Trench Crusade universe of the Necronomicon, or something like Ready Player One, or any other just terrifyingly evil book that no sane person would want to read or enjoy being within 50 feet of. So there you go. There's 5 super OP units in the lore in Trench Crusade. If you've got favorite OP units in the lore, shout them out in the comment section below. As always, folks, thank you so much just for watching my videos and having fun with me here on the channel. We like to keep it chill. All the best.